Hi, it's Keir Finlay-Bates here, and in a previous video I was talking about £5 notes, and that reminded me of an event in my teenage years where, after having done quite a lot of chores, I got what was then the princely sum of £5. And on receiving the £5 note, I was examining it, and I've actually got a modern £5 note. They were a bit bigger and slightly differently coloured back then in the 80s. But this one has the same thing written on it that I noticed on that banknote in the 80s. And the phrase is, "I promise to pay the bearer on demand the sum of £5. Now, as a 14 or 15-year-old, I found this rather confusing because it's £5, and yet it's saying on it that when you present it, you'll get paid £5. What is this all about? And I went to, I think it was either my father or a teacher, and asked that very question. And the answer I got back was that, yes, that dates back to the days where the pieces of paper represented the underlying silver or gold that was being held by the Bank of England. So the idea was that rather than walking around with a lot of silver in your pocket, you walk around with a £5 note, and you can take it to the bank and present it, and the paper is what is technically called a promissory note, but what in plain English would be a note that makes a promise. And the promise is that on handing over the piece of paper, you'll get £5, and which is a weight of silver. And I think it was my dad who I was talking to, and he then pointed out that the proper name of the British currency is actually pounds sterling, and sterling being another word for silver. So as a kid, I thought, okay, well, that's great. I'm happy with that. Interesting story. And of course, I just went off and spent the money, as you do, and got a whole load of sweets or something. Maybe I got a computer magazine. It might have been that. But fast forward to later adult life, and I started thinking about the fact that, well, this piece of paper is now no longer coupled to an underlying hoard of silver being held by the Bank of England. You can't actually get them to give you silver anymore. In fact, if you take a tatty, worn-out, coffee-stained £5 note to the Bank of England, they'll give you a nice, pristine new one. So really, nowadays, all a £5 note is a promissory note for you to exchange that particular piece of paper for another identical, pretty much, piece of paper. So how does it all work? And the answer there is that ultimately money is a kind of collective illusion or fiction, and as long as we all believe it, then it just works. And so it doesn't matter that there isn't an asset underlying this £5 note anymore, as long as everybody who uses pounds believes in their power to effect trade and enable exchanges and make bartering a thing of the past, then they just work. But because of the decoupling from any kind of underlying asset, if you actually dig deep down, it becomes kind of meaningless. It's just a chain of promises, and that, I guess, just fundamentally is how it works. As long as the chain of promises is kept, as long as every individual participating in the system believes that it can be passed onward, then and will be accepted, then it just works. Of course, this is what happens in countries where the currency collapses, is that faith in the currency disappears because of economic mismanagement, and the system breaks down and chaos ensues. So let's hope that doesn't happen to the UK. One final thing I can't help noting is that on the other side of the modern £5 note is a quote from Winston Churchill, and the quote is, "I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears and sweat." And I find that kind of amusing because the £5 note doesn't even offer that. Anyway, that's today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. See you in the next one soon. Bye for now.